We're on our way to the West Coast, going to LA. We're gonna back up our boys to race the West Coast guys on their own turf.
She's mostly German and most people don't even know it. No, it's probably 90% California at this point.
Street Outlaws AZN met a shocking and tragic fate that no one saw coming. He wasn't just any racer, he turned junk cars into speed machines and kept fans glued to their screens. His story took a heartbreaking turn and we lost a true original who raced with heart. His partnership with Farmtruck was a brotherhood forged in fast cars and excitement. Tune in as the cameras pull away and the true story is completely exposed. When friendship drove the fast lane, the West Coast, land of sun and apparently speed demons, the crew headed over there to back up their boys, ready to see who'd come out on top when it came to racing on the streets where palm trees sway. But things took a dark turn when the news hit. AZN from Street Outlaws was gone. A real hit to the racing world. This racer wasn't just a speed junkie, he had the kind of personality that made people tune in like every single time. But as the streets waited, a secret about AZN's disappearance began to surface. Let's be real, the late driver wasn't just Farmtruck's sidekick. Sure, he might have played that role in front of the cameras, but behind those flashy lights and roaring engines, there was a lot more going on. The man, Jeff Bonnet, if we're talking real names, was a guy who could take the most beat-up ride and turn it into something no one expected. Born in early August of 1981, he grew up in the middle of Oklahoma's car culture. His childhood packed with days spent learning the ropes from his parents, Dennis and Matsu.
What the hell is that? Dude, I asked for a wing, not a bookshelf.
His dad taught him everything from how to turn a wrench to how to hug those sharp curves, but the real game changer was meeting his mentor, the guy who really turned him into the racer everyone knew. The racer and his mentor had the kind of partnership where the setbacks only made them work harder. Every scraped bumper, blown tire, or failed engine tweak was just another lesson, and it didn't take long for their bond to grow stronger through all those late nights working in the garage. Their journey wasn't all checkered flags and cheers. Sometimes the wins were small, barely their moments, but they took them anyway. That's the thing, their story was never just about who crossed the line first, but about keeping going even when the engine sputtered and the road seemed like it would never end. The thing with Street Outlaws was that it wasn't just about the adrenaline or the cars, it was about the people. People like the Oklahoma native who poured their heart and soul into every race. He worked his way up from driving a high school ride, a rusted-out '64 Chevy Nova, to becoming a household name. The Nova wasn't a sleek, tricked-out machine when he got it. It was a clunky project that he and his dad took on during weekends, making it theirs with sweat, scraped knuckles, and a lot of late-night hours. He didn't have the cash to buy something flashy, so he painted house numbers on curbs to pay back the loan from his dad. It was this Nova that taught him the nuts and bolts, and it became something more than just a vehicle. It was his ticket to the racing world.
Okay, this is a Honda Killer. You got a Honda motor in it.
But it's just an old man power chair.
Dude, it's got a full bottle in it.
His rise on the Oklahoma racing scene brought him in contact with Farmtruck, and that partnership changed everything. Farmtruck might have been more experienced, but there was something in this rising talent that stood out. They clicked, not just because of their love for cars, but because they both had the kind of stubborn drive that meant they never really gave up on a challenge. Their friendship didn't just play out on the streets, it became a part of television history when they made it onto Street Outlaws. And then there was the Dung Beetle, a car that probably nobody but this racer would have thought belonged on a racetrack. The Dung Beetle wasn't sleek, it wasn't fast, at least not until it was in his hands. It was a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle, rust-colored, quirky, and a little odd next to the big muscle cars. But he made it work and he turned it into a contender. It wasn't the kind of car anyone looked at and thought, that's gonna win. It wasn't a Mustang or a Camaro built to eat up the road. No, it was a Beetle with its tiny body and engine in the back. But that was what made him different. He saw potential where no one else did, and that Beetle became something of a legend. He tuned it, boosted it, and made it fast enough that even some of the bigger names on the track had to take notice. It wasn't just the car, it was his ability to transform it, to push it beyond its limits that got him respect. Farmtruck and his partner made a name for themselves on the show, but the street racing world wasn't always welcoming. The producers, seeing his different approach and his less conventional car choices, started to leave him out. They thought he wasn't as into winning as the others, and before long, he and Farmtruck were kind of sidelined. It didn't keep them down, though. They took that step back and made it their chance to do something different. Their spin-off show, Street Outlaws, Farmtruck, and AZN, became a place where they could really shine. The spin-off wasn't just about racing, it was about their friendship, the laughs, the ups and downs, and the bond between them. They weren't just partners in a garage, they were best friends, and that showed on screen. From crazy car builds that could barely pass for street legal to weird one-off projects, they kept things interesting. And then there was the humor. The show was just as much about the pranks, the teasing, and the antics as it was about the cars, and fans loved it. Even if their spin-off didn't quite get the numbers to stay on the air forever, it left its mark, and people got to see a different side of the racer. The guy who wasn't afraid to have a good time, even if the cameras were rolling. AZN and Farmtruck kept racing, facing new roads and challenges that tested their bond. Racing, resilience, and rusted dreams. The thing is, AZN and Farmtruck never really stopped racing. They couldn't. It was too much a part of who they were. Even after the spin-off slowed down, the dynamic duo was still out there, still taking on challenges, still making sure that even if they weren't crossing the line first, they were making it a race worth watching. They took the Beetle on the road, turning it into more than just an old car. It became a symbol of what they stood for.
Let us finish this up, and then we'll go do a little rice shopping.
We're gonna shop for rice?
It wasn't about horsepower or sleek lines. It was about creativity, grit, and making something from nothing. The whole racing scene got to see the Beetle builder and his partner's bond evolve. They went from racing on back streets to showing up at big events like Summer Nats in Australia. There, the Volkswagen tuner and Farmtruck found themselves in one of those unpredictable moments. The Beetle's engine went bust during a burnout contest. They lost control, hit a barrier, but walked away without a scratch. It was the kind of thing that might have put some racers off, but not these two. They took it in stride, even laughed about it afterward. The thing about this garage genius was that he wasn't just a racer. He was someone who brought his personality into everything he did. He had a way of making the street racing scene feel like more than just a bunch of cars speeding down asphalt. He made it fun. He could mess around, talk a little smack, and still have everyone cheering for him by the end of the night. Even with all the ups and downs, the losses, the near misses, and the setbacks, he kept showing up. Fans adored the Oklahoma racer because he never acted like he was better than anyone else. He could have stuck to safe cars and tried to fit in with the crowd, but instead he picked a Volkswagen Beetle, painted it like it was covered in rust, and made it the car everyone wanted to see race. He put in the hours, made sure it wasn't just for show, and when it did win, it made those victories all the sweeter. And even when it didn't, he made sure that everyone had a good time watching. Outside of the racing world, the driver kept his private life locked down, and that just made people more curious. Rumors floated around about relationships, especially with a woman named Lisa Lacey, but nothing was ever really confirmed. He left that part of his life behind the garage door, and maybe that was part of his charm. The mystery, the sense that there was more to him than what anyone got to see on screen. In the end, this automotive innovator was more than just the guy next to Farmtruck or the racer behind the wheel of the dung beetle. He was someone who took the path less traveled, who made something unexpected, and who always kept things interesting. Whether he was fixing up a clunker, racing against the odds, or just having a laugh with his best friend, he brought something to the world of street racing that wasn't there before. A bit of fun, a lot of heart, and a reminder that sometimes the best cars aren't the ones you expect to see out there tearing up the track. For him, racing wasn't just about the thrill of speed or the roar of an engine. It was a connection to his past, his family, and the people who mattered most to him. It was in the garage, under the hood of a car, that he learned life's lessons, patience, resilience, and the value of hard work. It was also where he found a sense of belonging, whether it was with his father, with Farmtruck, or within the broader racing community. The dung beetle, that quirky little car he poured his heart into, wasn't just a machine. It was a testament to all those long hours, the setbacks that only made him try harder, and the victories that made it all worth it. One of the most iconic moments in his career came when he and Farmtruck took the Beetle to some of the biggest street racing events in the country.
Yeah! Yeah! He's in!
They pulled into places where people thought they knew what to expect. Big muscle cars, roaring engines, all flash and no surprise. And then he would roll out in the dung beetle, rust and all, and suddenly it wasn't about who had the biggest car. It was about who had the most guts, who had the skill to take something ordinary and make it extraordinary. The crowds loved it, and they loved him for being the guy who never did what everyone else was doing. Farmtruck and his teammate also became known for their pranks, their fun-loving attitude, and the way they seemed to always be having a good time even when things didn't go their way. They brought that same energy to every race and every episode of their show. They'd pull up to the starting line in something completely unexpected, a hearse, a bread truck, you name it, and they'd make it work. It wasn't always about winning, it was about the challenge, the creativity, and the fun of it all. But it wasn't always fun and games. The driver's life was marked by real loss, and those moments shaped who he was both on and off the track. Losing his mother when he was still young, and then his father not long after, left him without the people who had taught him to love cars in the first place. But instead of letting that stop him, he used it as fuel. Every race, every car he fixed up, every late night in the garage was a way to keep those memories alive. His mentor, Farmtruck, became not just a friend but something of a father figure, and their partnership was about more than just racing. It was about family. Their spin-off show, Street Outlaws, Farmtruck, and AZN, gave viewers a glimpse into that relationship. It was about more than just cars. It was about the kind of bond that forms when two people share a passion, spend countless hours working toward the same goal, and face the same challenges. The show gave fans a chance to see the work that went into every build, the problem-solving, the setbacks, and the moments of triumph. It wasn't about glitz or glamour, it was about getting your hands dirty, about laughing even when things went wrong, and about always pushing forward. The dung beetle, for all its quirks, was a car that represented him perfectly. It wasn't the fastest or the flashiest, but it had character. It was unexpected, and it had a lot more going on under the surface than people thought. When he and Farmtruck showed up at a race with that car, people didn't know what to think. And that was exactly the point. They didn't need to fit in with the rest of the racers. They were there to stand out, to do something different, and to have a good time doing it. When it came to racing, the driver had a style that was all his own. He wasn't interested in just doing what everyone else was doing. He took risks, tried new things, and wasn't afraid to fail. That was what made him such a compelling figure on Street Outlaws. He wasn't just there to win, he was there to challenge himself, to push his limits, and to make sure that every race was one to remember. There was a moment that fans still talk about, a race where he and Farmtruck showed up with a vehicle that looked like it belonged anywhere but on a drag strip. It was a beat-up old farm truck, and everyone thought they were crazy for even trying to race it. But that was the thing about this racer, he loved proving people wrong. They didn't win that race, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that they showed up, gave it their all, and had a blast doing it. And in the end, that's what street racing was all about for him. It wasn't about the trophies or the accolades, it was about the thrill, the camaraderie, and the love of the game. Street Outlaws had its moments, especially when things went wrong, pushing drivers to their limits. When metal meets hard asphalt. Now let's talk about some of the wildest wrecks from Street Outlaws. Buckle up because these stories are filled with mangled metal, shattered glass, and drivers pushing the limits, sometimes paying a hefty price for it. First on our list is the unforgettable crash involving Daddy Dave back in 2015. This one went down just 2 years after the show first kicked off, giving everyone a reality check on the dangers involved. It all happened on a Saturday night at the Amarillo Dragway in Texas. Dave was tearing down the track in his Chevy 2 with nitrous-loaded tires when things went horribly wrong. He lost control, slammed into a wall, and then the car went airborne, doing several brutal barrel rolls before finally coming to a stop. To put it simply, it was chaos. The crash was so brutal that it never even made it to television, probably because no one really needed to see that kind of carnage. Miraculously, Daddy Dave survived, though he had a nasty concussion and does not remember anything from that night. Honestly, it is a miracle he walked away at all. Fast forward to 2022 and we have another crash, this time involving JJ DeBoss and Trisha Day. They were racing for America's List when things got really messy. Both of them ended up plowing into a bunch of rental cars that were parked on set. The crash was pretty nasty, and Tricia took the worst of it. She was in the hospital for a week and needed surgery on both hips. The car? Totaled. It is just another reminder that racing is no joke, and even experienced drivers like JJ and Tricia are not immune to the dangers. Then there is Brandon James, one of the younger stars in the game. His crash happened in 2021 during a race against Lizzie Musey for America's List. James was in his '56 Chevy Bel Air when he lost control, flew off the road, and the car flipped. He ended up with some minor injuries, but it was enough to sideline him for the rest of that season. Losing his car meant that Brandon had to sit out, but honestly, considering how bad that wreck looked, he is lucky that is all he lost. Now he is back on the track with a '68 twin-turbo Mustang and a '67 blown Nova, so clearly a little crash was not enough to keep him away. Next up we have Doc, the guy with a reputation for being one of the most solid drivers on Street Outlaws. But even the best can have bad days, and Doc's bad day came in 2020. He was filming for the original show in his Street Beast when everything went south. The car rolled 5, maybe 6 times, and even took out some pretty thick trees along the way. People who saw it said it was one of the scariest moments in the show's history. Doc came out of it with some severe injuries and could not remember anything from the race. It took him a long time to recover, and his beloved Street Beast was completely destroyed.
Okay, now settle down. Okay, now we're just gonna go up here just a little.
He made it clear that rebuilding was not something he was looking forward to, especially with the strain COVID put on his finances, but true to form, Doc promised he would be back, and he is not one to break promises. Then there is Shannon Poole, who had one of the scariest moments on the track when his car went up in flames. He was racing at Gulfport Dragway's Fat Tuesday Mardi Gras blowout in his gorgeous 1964 Corvette. Everything looked great until the car hit a small bump, and instead of landing smoothly, it took off like it was trying to become the world's first flying Corvette. It came crashing back down nose first, and then the worst happened. The car caught fire. By this point, winning the race was the least of Poole's worries. Luckily, emergency crews were there to put out the fire and get Poole out safely. He was conscious afterward and showed no major injuries, but his Corvette was a different story. Turns out the downforce on that model just was not right for those speeds, and it cost him dearly. Next up is a crash that involved Big Chief back in 2016. This one happened in Detroit, and it was a freak accident. Another driver lost control and veered right into Big Chief's lane. Chief's car was completely wrecked, but somehow he walked away without needing a hospital visit. If there is one thing all these crashes show, it is that Street Outlaws is not just entertainment. It is real, and it is dangerous. These drivers are risking everything every time they hit the track. It is not for the faint of heart, and the fact that they keep coming back after crashes like these shows just how committed they are to the thrill of racing. Then we have the unforgettable crash involving Jeff Lutz in 2021. Lutz, known for his precision and experience, was behind the wheel of his 1957 Chevy when things went awry. He lost control of the vehicle during a race, and the car went head-on into a guardrail before flipping multiple times. The Chevy was completely totaled, and the scene was nothing short of terrifying. Fortunately, Lutz managed to escape with minor injuries, but the recovery process took a toll on him. Despite the damage, Lutz has returned with the same passion for racing, proving once again that the spirit of these drivers is unbreakable. And who could forget the crash involving Monza in 2019? Monza, known for his fearless driving style, was racing his 1972 Camaro, also known as Sinister Split Bumper, when disaster struck. The car lost traction during a high-speed run, slammed into a wall, and rolled over several times. The impact was severe, leaving Monza with a concussion and a wrecked car. The rebuild process was long and challenging, but Monza made it clear that giving up was never an option. He came back stronger with a newly rebuilt Camaro ready to take on the streets again. Racing is not just about speed, it is about control, risk, and sometimes sheer luck. And on Street Outlaws, it is clear that even the best drivers can have moments where everything goes sideways, literally. These crashes are a harsh reminder that when you push machines to their limits, sometimes those limits push back. The racers know the risks, and they accept them, but it is the viewers who get the real wake-up call when things go wrong. Street racing may look glamorous, but behind the scenes, it is a mix of danger, skill, and sometimes just hoping today is not the day it all goes wrong. Do you think the thrill of street racing is worth the risk? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more content like this.